So, this personal file is going to be covering the life and career path of one Wesley Crusher. Although his time in Starfleet was brief, I'm going to include some apocrypha, as I have done before in places that does not contradict. However, well, Wesley is a far more interesting character in the expanded universe of novels and games than just the shows, as in most instances he continues to develop his time-shifting traveller powers, which leads him down many interesting iterations that are all canon, kinda? If not to the Prime timeline, then at least implied to all be alternate Wesleys that can all cross over with one another. Multiverse, baby. So, of course, Wesley Crusher was born in 2348 to Jack and Beverly Crusher in San Francisco. At the age of 5 in 2353, his father, Jack Crusher, was killed under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard on an away mission. By the age of 10, in 2358, he was studying magic tricks and the abilities of an escape artist he had witnessed. In 2364, his mother accepted a position as Chief Medical Officer on the Enterprise D, and he transferred with her to that vessel as a civilian. That year, he was also sentenced to death on Rubicon 3, rescued, then acquitted. Later, he encountered the Traveller, who noticed Wesley's abilities and marked him as a genius and savant at space-time manipulation. Captain Picard appointed Wesley as an acting ensign so he could take on bridge duties and training, and sponsored him for Starfleet Academy to encourage his growth. He served as an acting junior con officer. In 2364, he applied for Starfleet Academy and was rejected. Optimistic to apply so early. The next year, 2365, Riker appointed him the head of a science team for investigating the Selkundi Dreamer. In 2366, Crusher once more applied for Starfleet Academy at Starbase 515. His written exam was accepted, but the oral exam postponed thanks to interference. He was promoted to a full acting ensign by Picard and assigned shift duties aboard the Enterprise as junior con officer. In 2367, he was finally accepted into Starfleet Academy in full. That year he took part in an away mission to Pentorus, where he saved Picard's life. Shortly into his first year, he was excelling in every class and was picked for Nova Squadron. He befriended fellow cadets Joshua Albert and the Nova Squadron members. However, in 2368, the infamous Corvoord Starburst cover-up occurred, and he eventually testified under ultimatum from Captain Picard to reveal the plot. He was reprimanded, and Year 1 was voided, meaning that he had to repeat Year 1 of the Academy. From this point on, his grades and commitment began to slip, and in 2370 he returned to the Enterprise briefly and took part in an away mission to Dorvan 5, where he met with the Traveller again. Shortly after this, his powers manifested with the ability to freeze time, and he resigned from Starfleet to pursue a path of learning about his developing powers. From this point on, things can get a little messy as he developed his abilities, which only began with freezing time, as demonstrated in 2370. Apocryphal sources have him develop much greater powers, and even in canon he has gained the ability to time travel. So, the further appearances of him might now be considered in the same way Agent Daniels from Enterprise might appear, perhaps not in chronological order, or even with alternate reality versions of himself crossing over. The last appearance we have of him is in 2379, when he appears on the Enterprise E at Riker and Troy's wedding in uniform. This suggests he either borrowed a uniform on field commission from Picard once more, or completed his academy training before leaving again. Either way, by the time of his next appearance, he had resumed his Traveller duties and revealed that it was his organisation that had created the Supervisor program to which Gary 7 belonged. So, while the Prime timeline sees this outcome for him, his abilities offered him a greater degree of continuity hopping than other characters, so in a way, any appearance of Wesley Crusher might be soft canon and simply be in other universes, or even him reversing to a point in time to do something else. He could grow to be an old man, then go back and accidentally set a younger version of himself on a different path, creating another alternate Wesley, even within the same timeline. So, It might be better to think of all future appearances as simply a Wesley Crusher instead of the Wesley. In 2373, his training with the Traveller was well underway, and he uses his powers to alter time and prevent the formation of the Marquis, but this led to another war between the Federation and the Cardassians, so it was undone and a lesson learned. In 2377, he returns to the Enterprise, having learned how to time travel other individuals, and sent Riker into the 1920s, Illinois, to experience a jazz club in person before returning him. This was done in secret without revealing himself, as he used the pseudonym Evan Jackson when getting aboard the Enterprise, Jack's son. In 2378, he took his initiation into the Travellers properly and became a full-fledged Traveller in space and time. In another timeline, he helps prevent the Abaddon machine, a planet-sized black hole absorption machine, from destroying the Milky Way. The first Splinter timeline, which is the connected continuity timeline of many of the books, sees several versions of Wesley from various realities all working together to prevent an interdimensional Davidian attack that were collapsing entire parallel universes. One timeline had him return to Starfleet properly and reach the rank of Lieutenant Commander by 2381, and he was the Deputy Chief Engineer of the Titan, which may have seen him continue on in Starfleet and reach the rank of Captain by 2408 in command of the USS Hood. Another timeline variation saw him in this position, but Deanna Troi was long dead. Another timeline saw him as a Chief Engineer of the Enterprise D, and so on. There are many iterations of Wesley Crusher, and thanks to his powers and timeline hopping, they might all be true. This is not even touching on the versions of him that are natives to alternate timelines, that then go on to develop the same dimension-hopping powers, such as his Terran universe counterpart, who is actually terrifyingly deranged and with the abilities to back it up. In terms of hobbies, most of his interests we see him exhibit are around science experiments and personal projects, more so than any creative artistic pursuits. But even these hobbies are the recipient of his dedicated and methodical focus, albeit accidents do happen, but the level of his experimentation was already rivaling that of some Starfleet R&D. Personality-wise, Wesley followed a lot of growth and change, which makes sense as a character who grew through childhood to adulthood in the shows. Initially, he developed a lot of resentment towards Picard for his father's death, but this passed in time as he logically understood Picard's role. However, this led him to subconsciously hold himself back out of fear of similar life or death decisions in his own life. He clearly displayed a strong aptitude and, more importantly, passion for time and space phenomena, and was essentially a genius when it came to such matters. Even his fascination with the escape artists of his youth could be seen as a precursor to his role in later life. He was capable of being both extremely logical but also prone to emotional outbursts as a teen, understandable, and this unfortunately developed into an egotistical streak that needed to be kept in check. Role models around him did exceptionally well to guide him in this, and he developed into a promising and talented youth. However, it was pretty much expected for him from the start that he would follow in his father's footsteps, as well as those of the majority of his role models in following the Starfleet career path. In many ways, this was never even a choice for him. And while he excelled at it, it was all too easy to assume he was meant for this role. But the disaster of Nova Squadron set him on finding his true purpose. His ego and desire to be approved of led him to make mistakes and cover up the death of a fellow cadet and friend. This eventually cost him a great deal of self-respect and made his time at Starfleet much harsher, as he was constantly reminded of his failure. With this loss of status and belief, he began to lose interest in following the career path he had been guided down by others and became a lot more cynical. When the Traveller revealed himself to Wesley again, and the young man experienced a vision of his father, he realised that his own choices led him beyond Starfleet. He would make an exceptional officer, but his natural aptitude and manifesting powers would potentially be wasted in that role. Instead, he opted to learn how to utilise his ability to explore more. This ties into one of the recurring themes of Star Trek, I think. One of the points of Q's Trials of Humanity was to see if individuals like Picard were ready to begin exploring the next frontier, not that of space, but that of time and alternate realities. We see that higher beings begin to dabble in this, with creatures like Voyager immediately setting off to explore different realities, and now Wesley Crusher opts to expand his horizons beyond just one realm of existence. While he deeply cares for and appreciates those who mentored him, the lessons he took from them were ones of duty, compassion, humility, and scrutiny. These are lessons that are certainly admired in Starfleet, but not beholden to it. They are good life lessons for any individual in any field, and even though he opted for a new path, he holds these values close, and they continue to inform his actions. Wesley Crusher is a more interesting individual as the series goes on. As a kid, I liked him for the age similarity in this sci-fi show I was watching, but looking back on his appearance now, I can see why Shut Up Wesley became such a meme. His character, though, develops in an interesting and unexpected direction that was still well thought out, and in hindsight, an understandable one. My picks for Wesley Crusher character episodes, funnily enough, don't include the final duty. Although his moral struggle is at the centre of it, I think the ultimate effects are felt elsewhere. So, I'd pick Coming of Age for a good look at initial Wesley in a professional environment. Final Mission showcases the culmination of his journey aboard the Enterprise and the future he is embarking on, while Journey's End has him confronting the emotional ramifications of becoming his own person and stepping away from Starfleet. His appearance in Picard Series 2 is little more than a cameo and a glimpse at his life now, and apart from that he has nothing to do with the show. It does show that he took the role of traveller and did something noble with it, however. But that about covers the career of Wesley Crusher, one of several characters who grew alongside the shows, and I think definitely one that got better with later appearances. Thanks for watching this breakdown on his timeline. I've been Rick, and I'll see you again for a new video. Until that time, goodbye.